Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. I'm Jack with Dr. Pepe Ping, and we're pleased to continue our Bridge to AI Training, Recruitment, and Mentoring Working Group lecture series for 2025 and 2026. We're excited to share another thought-provoking session with the entire consortium community, navigating ethical AI in healthcare, protecting consumers and patients. Dr. Ping?
It is our honor and pleasure to welcome today's distinguished speaker, Dr. Adela Grando. She is professor of biomedical informatics in the College of Health Solutions at ASU, and she has a joint appointment at the Mayo Clinic. She will be presenting her lecture titled Navigating Ethical AI in Healthcare. Dr. Grando is a highly respected leader in the biomedical and clinical informatics. Her work bridges patient-centered technologies, decision support, and privacy-preserving data practices. At ASU, she serves as a tenured professor, and she is also the director of research education, where she leads initiatives at the intersection of consumer health informatics and human-centered AI technologies. Her program portfolio reflects a consistent commitment to improving how patients and clinicians interact with digital health systems. Her academic path includes her doctor training in Spain, followed by advanced postdoctoral investigations at UC San Diego, Oxford, and Edinburgh. She continues to collaborate deeply across both clinical and academic environment. It is important to mention that Dr. Grando has an extensive publication record and has served in multiple editorial leadership capacities, including the journal, the Health Informatics Journal, and as well as the Journal of Biomedical Informatics and AI in Medicine. She currently is a fellow of both AMIA and American College of Medical Informatics, reflecting her impact in the field. Again, we are very honored, very fortunate to have her today guiding our learning and discussions on the ethical dimensions of AI in healthcare. Back to you, Jack.
Thank you, Dr. Ping. I'll just be going over some of the learning objectives for the lecture today. In today's session, we'll focus on three specific learning goals. First, we'll explore why ethical principles must be built into the design and evaluation of AI-driven mental health tools, an area where real-world consequences for vulnerable populations make responsible development essential. Second, we'll walk through the future AI framework, understanding its major components and discussing how it helps ensure that AI systems remain trustworthy, transparent, and human-centered. Finally, we'll apply that framework to evaluate a mental health mobile app application, examining its robustness and identifying where safeguards are needed. These skills are increasingly important as AI becomes more deeply integrated into patient care and consumer health technologies. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Grando, and she can tell us all about it.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Very thoughtful. I'm super excited about being here and about talking about the topic that I'm so passionate about, which is empowering consumers and patients, especially in the area of AI. And I will be sharing my slides.
Looks good.
Looks good. Excellent. Well, thank you. And you already went through the objectives, so thank you for that. And I hope at the end of the presentation you are advocating too, like I am doing, about the importance of ethical principles, especially in the space of mental health. There are many frameworks there that you could be using to ensure that your application is ethical, but today I just chose one of them, and we will go into detail about that framework. And then we're going to go through a hands-on exercise. So you get to have a flavor of how you would use a framework in real life. So let me start with an overview of AI in mental health. You may be aware, as I am, that there has been a tremendous explosion of consumer-facing AI-based mental health applications. Unfortunately, we don't know how many. It's very difficult to determine that. But what we know for certainly is that only few of them have been clinically validated. And we all know that these applications deal with vulnerable population. So we need to be very conscious about the way we build and test and evaluate and monitor those evaluations. So I wanted to give you 3 examples of typical type of AI in mental health applications that you may see nowadays. First one could be recommendation engines. So these are the types of applications where you self-report your mood. For instance, today I'm a bit anxious or I feel a little panic. And then they could also combine data from your wearable devices. So for instance, your heart rate or your sleep behaviors. And also it could be using data from your mobile device. So for instance, how much time you spend watching the screen time. So they can use simple or sophisticated AI algorithms, and they can create mood-based suggestions. So for instance, it looks like today you're a bit anxious. Would you like to try the 3 minutes breathing exercise? So those are the types of applications. The other one is predictive analytics. Again, here they can be very simple or sophisticated. So they can be using self-reported data, wearable data, mobile data. It could also sometimes use structured data, so EHR data. And they can predict behaviors. So for instance, suicidal ideation or estimate probabilities of relapse. Some of these applications, I can tell you because I go to a lot of substance use disorder conferences and events, are not always seen favorably by patients. So there's a lot of controversy behind these applications. And the last one are the chatbots. And this is where we have seen a lot more of explosion of applications. And the newer ones are mostly based on large language models, which I think it's relevant for this crowd, for the bridge to AI crowd. And they try to mimic the experience of being with a therapist. Sometimes they are transparent about it, that there is no therapist on the other side, but sometimes it's a little less clear that actually you are interacting with that AI agent. So that brings some controversy too. So it's important here to understand that not all chatbots are the same. There's a lot of variation in this area. They change a lot based on scope, functionality, clinical validation, and regulatory compliance. So I wanted to give you an example of the kind of chatbots that you can find. And it could be in one extreme, you can think about generic AI chatbots. So you can think about ChatGPT. And ChatGPT was never created as a tool for mental health advice. But we are seeing a trend, and I'm sure you have heard about this in the media, and this is a dangerous trend, that more and more people are using these generic AIs for mental health. It could be because of the cost of mental health services when you are not insured, you have no insurance, or it could be also because of the shortage of service providers. We don't have enough. But this is a very dangerous trend that you should be aware of. And I don't know if you heard about this case, but it has been a lot in the news. It happens in California, that a teenager was first using ChatGPT to do the homework. And then he committed suicide, and the family is starting a legal case against OpenAI because they claim that ChatGPT encouraged their son to kill himself. So this is on one extreme, very extreme case of use of chatbots for mental health. Somewhere in the middle, we have AI chatbots for wellness. So they're usually AI-based companions, someone you can talk to, and they try to show empathy, but they don't claim to provide any mental health advice. And this is a way they have not to avoid FDA medical device approval. But as you can see, many of these applications, because they allow you to talk about your feelings and if they interact with you, depending on how they are programmed and the functionalities they provide, they may impact your mental health. And we will see later a concrete example of this, which we will use that example to apply the framework that we chose. So that's in the middle. And then we have on the other extreme, AI chatbots that have been created with the purpose of providing mental health advice. And we need applications like that because of the cost of care and the shortage of professionals. But to create an application like that, you need to clinically validate it. And this, I just found an example that I want to share with you of WISA, which is one application. So you need to clinically validate it, and you need to seek for FDA approval. In this case of this application, they have a FDA breakthrough device designation, and they're working on FDA approval. But this is a case of a good use of AI chatbots for mental health. So what kind of features a chatbot like that may have? You would expect that they will have some digital self-care tools. Some of them could be mindfulness, breathing exercise, meditations, and some of them could be evidence-based, and this is important, like for instance, applying cognitive behavioral therapies. Also, you would expect that applications of this sort that they go for FDA approval will also have humans in the loop. So if needed, as a user, you may require a professional to talk with. So those are the characteristics that you expect to see in a good chatbot. So I wanted to share this with you. Not all the chatbots are bad there. Some of them, some companies, industries working on some really good ones to help people. So now let's say that you want to build an application like this, or you as a user want to choose one application. What ethical principles you need to think about when you talk about AI-based mental health applications? And here I need to make a disclaimer. I'm not an ethicist. I'm a computer scientist and informatician, but I did consult with an ethicist when preparing this presentation. I have a great colleague, Dr. Robert Cook-Deegan, here at ASU, who helped me review and gave me feedback on the presentation. So great thank you to him for that. So let's start with some of the main ethical challenges. And I'm going to mention a few here, but you may think about others that I didn't list it here. Let's start with data privacy and security. And for me, this is the first thing I think about because this is my area of research. I work a lot on data privacy on substance use disorder, mental health, and the Latinx population. So this is the first thing that comes to my mind. So when you are using these apps, you are sharing extremely sensitive information about you. And you would expect that they protect it, that they keep it private. And if they share with other third parties, if they sell it with other third parties, that they will inform to you that, and that they are clear about it before you choose to use or download that app. It's also important to understand that these apps don't only collect sensitive information about you, but they can create new sensitive information that doesn't exist. So they can infer, they can guess things about you and create sensitive information. So for instance, they may infer that you have high probability of a relapse. So you never said that, right? But it's inference. How do they protect this new data? Do they have the same protections than the data that you share through the application? So hopefully, they have very clear private policies where they explain all this. Hopefully, they're not 10 pages long with very little font or hard to understand. But even if they have clear private policies that are maybe in 6th or 5th grade level, you need to think that when a person consent, they may be in the wrong time. So you may be in a situation of crisis. Is that the best moment to decide if you want to use that app and if you feel comfortable with that, how that app protects your privacy and security? So that is an open question. The other challenge is related to bias, fairness, and cultural sensitivity. Uh, Mental health is especially complex conditions. So you need an AI that picks up on a lot of nuances. So for example, that it can understand how different people express their feelings. Not everyone is the same. And your culture, your upbringing, all of these things can impact the way that you communicate about your mental health and also about your mental models. Do you feel stigma? In some cultures, it's more stigmatizing than in others. So there are cultural differences, and hopefully you want your AI algorithm to pick on those. Again, bias, we know this continues being an issue in AI. What works for one group may not work for other. And then you also want it to be able to pick up risk cues, which may change based on age, gender, identity, or culture. So what could be a warning sign in one group may be a normal in other. So how do you create an AI algorithm that look into all those nuances so they give the right recommendations? So that's a challenge too. In terms of safety, robustness, and crisis response, it's important that all these applications have a way to handle thoughts of suicide and crisis situations. This is number one. And I'm telling you, I recruit participants all the time in clinical sites for my studies, and IRB requires me always to have a plan for these situations. I always have a plan. I have to be always prepared. It never have happened to me, luckily, but I always have to work with the clinical side to have a plan in place. So you expect that these applications have that too. Also, you expect that these applications will not provide unsafe responses, and there are examples of things that in the past where this happened. Also, you expect that they will not miss important context. And to be able to do all this, it's important that the apps are tested systematically with all the potential scenarios, and especially crisis scenarios. So we need to demand that from any AI-based mental health application. Finally, transparency and explainability. As a users, we would like to know at least the basics of how this app works, what the app can or cannot do. As basic as to know, is that a therapist I'm talking with, or is an AI agent, what I'm talking with? So are humans involved? If I get really stressed, I'm in a situation of crisis, can I talk with a human? How recommendations are generated, and how is my data stored or used? So these are the main ethical challenges that I can think about, but as I said, I may have missed others. Also, I forgot, also autonomy and algorithmic nudging. Here also, it's very important to understand that you're interacting with these applications when you are in a very vulnerable situation. So it's easier for these applications to manipulate you or to guide you towards doing certain things or having certain thoughts. Also, we are seeing that these applications, sometimes they want to charge you extra. When they find that you are in a situation where very vulnerable, they offer you that extra payment for premium emotional support. Is that ethical? No, that's an open question. So hopefully by now you are convinced of that there are a lot of ethical challenges when you think about this application, but you think I still want to contribute to this area. I do want to build applications. How can I make this ethically? What help can I get there to be sure that I create ethically based applications? So I'm going to give you some resources that you can use so you can do this ethically. So I'm going to talk to you about some frameworks. The frameworks that I'm going to talk about are not enforced, so they are voluntary. You can choose to use them. And the idea is that hopefully if we use them, if we adopt them, if we find them useful and we start to collect data about these frameworks, they will eventually lead to standards and certifications. And hopefully they can guide in the future the development of laws and policies. As you know, we don't have an AI in healthcare policy at the federal level in the United States, but some states are starting to create some regulations. So I wanted to list here a few frameworks which I think are the main ones that you need to pay attention to. And I compare them based on, are they health focused? Because they can talk about ethical AI outside healthcare. And the healthcare could be just one use case. Are they consumer centered? For instance, do they look at transparency, usability? Were consumers involved in the creations of these frameworks? Are they actionable? They give you concrete advice that you can use. Then are they legally enforced? And what is the geographical scope? Were they built for US, for the European Union, or internationally? So I listed here frameworks by the American Medical Association, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, WHO, the US National Institute of Standards and Technology, one by the National Academy of Medicine, the Future AI, which is the framework I chose to talk to you today, and the European Union. And you can see here the only law, the only one that is legally enforced is the one from the European Union. All the rest are voluntary. So you say, okay, now I have all these frameworks, but it's a little overwhelming. Which one should I choose? And the question is, depends. Depends what you need it for. Because they were created by different stakeholders groups, so they reflect different perspectives. So I give you an idea. If you are a physician or you have a clinical practice, your first choice may be the one from the American Medical Association, because, for instance, they talk a lot about liability. They talk about payers' use of AI. So that may be the best framework for you. If you, for instance, were part of a Minister of Health, or you were thinking about health from the country point of view, you want to go and see the WHO framework. So I chose the Future AI framework because it's meant for AI researchers and healthcare AI developers. So I think it's more suitable if you are building AI applications to look at that framework. What emerged though in commons is that all of these frameworks, they consider that accountability, transparency, fairness, equity, human-centric design, and risk-based governance are common themes. So they all acknowledge that this is very important. So no matter their difference, these themes have emerged in common between all these frameworks, which is a good thing. We want these themes to be present in an ethical AI framework. In terms of consumer perspective, the most consumer-centered framework that we saw is from the National Academy of Medicine. The only one that actually it's a regulation, it's a law, I would say, is from the European Union. The rest of the frameworks, they consider the consumer needs implicitly by the type of themes that they cover, like usability and fairness. And some of the frameworks they just explicitly say, this is something that is left for the future. We haven't included consumers. So let's dive into the Future AI. And again, we chose it because it's international, it's health focused, it's consumer centered, and it gives very actionable advice. So you will see that when we explain the framework. And I think this is very important when you want to build an application. So also, we were very impressed that it went through a very thorough process of 2 years with 117 experts from 50 countries and all continents. So that is quite impressive for a framework. So you can see with this that it's not that easy to create a framework. It takes a lot of work. And I'm not going to cover the whole framework, but it has been published there. So you can look for it online and you can get all the details about this framework. So we're just going to cover the basics today. So what FUTURE stands for? It's an acronym that covers fair, universal, traceable, usable, robust, and explainable. So as you can see here, that is a lot, it's a lot of information. Some of these concepts are, when I look at them, very vague, very difficult to grasp. So how can you build measurable metrics and operations and procedures to quantify all this? It's not trivial. So let's look at how they did it with robustness. So first of all, for each theme, they create a definition. So in this case, they define robustness as the ability of a medical AI tool to maintain its performance and accuracy and the expected or unexpected variations in the input data. Again, this is a definition, very hard to make this actionable. So let's do what they do next. What they do next is that they break down this definition into recommendations, and they consider 4 phases of the development of an application. One is the design phase, the other one, the development, the other one, the evaluation, and the deployment. And as you can see, those arrows indicates, the flow. So at the level of the design phase, they said, the recommendation is that you define all sources of data heterogeneity. At the level of development, you should be collecting representative real-world data. At the level of evaluation, you should evaluate robustness against real variations. So again, they break something that is very abstract, very vague, into concrete recommendations linked to a development phase. So let's take one as example. Let's go a little deeper now. Let's see what they say about collected representative real-world data. Can they give us more advice on this? And they do. They take that recommendation and they break it down into concrete operations with examples, which I think is very, very useful. So let's look at the first operation. You should be collecting training data that reflect the demographic variations. So they give us an examples. This should be age, sex, ethnicity, socioeconomics, and these are just examples. Based on your application, you may change or personalize that operation. The second one is to collect training data that reflect the clinical variations. So let's say that you have an application that deals with a disease. So it would be natural to think about disease subgroups, treatment protocols, clinical outcomes, and also rare cases. The third one is collect training data that reflect variations in real-world practice. So here they give examples of data acquisition protocols, data annotations. You want to test it with different medical equipment, different operational variables, etc. And the fourth operation, after you did all that, they said you should push it a little further and you should artificially enhance the training data to mimic real-world conditions. And for that, they list a lot of methods that you can do, you can apply to do that. For instance, data augmentation. Are these operations enough? Do you need others? This is something that you may want to personalize for your application, but I think at least they give us ideas of where to go. And if you notice the examples, and this happens with all the examples from this framework, they're all based on clinical applications, not consumer-based applications. So clearly, they were not thinking about that, or at least they chose not to provide examples in that area. So if you have a consumer application, you have to do some personalization of the framework. I'm going to show you later how to do that. So let's take the first 2 operations and dive a little deeper on those ones. Let's see how we would show how to use those operations in a real example. So this is where we do the exercise together to see how it would work. And I chose a real chatbot to talk about. And I don't know how many of you heard about this app called Replica. But it has been in the news a lot and for the wrong reasons. So there have been a lot of complaints about this app. It's an AI companion that uses large language models. And when you use it, you can choose if you want to interact it with the app as a friend, as a mentor, or as a romantic partner. And they sold it as an app for adults, not for children. They claim that they don't provide mental health advice, so they didn't go for FDA approval. but we will see later that actually it impacts the mental health of people. And they created in California, but it rapidly expanded to more than 150 countries. So a little more about this app. It's actually quite sophisticated because you can, when you choose how to interact with the app, you can choose avatars, you can personalize that avatar. It has memory and learning, all from the dialogues that you have. It can now provide emotional reflection. And it provides, as we talked before, that premium feature that you can pay more if you want to expand or to have intimate interactions. Okay, so let's see what went wrong with this app. And this is all publicly available information. You can read about this app. I'm not part of the development team, but the information I have is what is publicly available. So there were privacy and data concerns. It turns out that it provided very weak data protections, so the users didn't know, but the company, the app, was sharing their data with advertisers. So imagine you are interacting with a romantic partner, the kind of things that you say or that you share about you can be very personal. The other issue was emotional dependency and relationship risk. It was found that this app created very strong emotional bonding with individuals who were very vulnerable. So they were lonely or isolated, and that is by no means desirable. And of course, it impacts the mental health of an individual, though they sold this app as a non-mental health app. The other issue was marketing and ethical issues. So they received a large fine of millions of euros in Italy because it was found that minors could easily use it. There was no age verification. And of course, as you may imagine, they were using it a lot for that feature of romantic relationships. So there were a lot of issues there that were against the regulation in Italy. All right. So if this framework, the future AI framework, is a good framework, we would expect that when we check this app, the replica app, it is able to pick up these things that were reported here. So let's see if that is the case. Let's see if we can detect these issues by using the future AI framework. So if we look at the first operation that we mentioned for robustness, which is collect training data that reflect demographic variations. So we should ask, did replica consider different ages, sex, ethnicity, and socioeconomics? So, and this is, of course, I was not involved with the development of this app, so these are hypothetical questions, but based on the information that is publicly available. Clearly not. It didn't consider these things. As I said, it was trained in California with English language and Western internet sources more probable, but then it expanded to 150 countries. So most probably it was not representative of global demographic variations. The expansion was really fast. Based on what the fines that they received from the Italian government, clearly they didn't think about age because they didn't provide any age controls. So they didn't think about age groups and how they would interact with this app. So this is an example of how this future AI framework would have picked up on these things and would have detected those issues. Let's look at another operation. Now let's look at the second operation, collect training data that reflect clinical variations. So here is the question is, did replica consider different psychological states, relational contexts, and emotional intensities? Again, it does not look like they did. There is no evidence that replica systematically sample users with different emotional needs because, as we saw before, it was creating a lot of emotional bonding with groups of people who are lonely, anxious, or they were going through grief. And this is not desirable. And you can see in the media many cases that have been reported on this. Also has been reported in the media that replica sometimes provided inappropriate emotional or sexual responses. what suggests that they didn't think about sensitive psychological cases. So again, the framework could have picked up on those issues if we apply these operations. So I hope that gives you an idea of how to use the framework. Again, this is just a small exercise, just a few minutes, just to give you a flavor for that. But we conducted a 3 hour workshop at EMEA in 2025 in Atlanta. This was in November, so not long ago. And the workshop included a 1 hour hands-on activity where we give the audience an hypothetical AI mental health app, very similar to Replica. So it was an AI companion, a chatbot using large language model. And we asked them to apply there were different groups, and every group received one letter, right, or one theme. So some group got robustness, some group got fairness, etc. And they have to work on this for 1 hour and apply the framework to that app. And this was organized by the Consumer Health Informatics Working Group that I'm very lucky to be part of. I'm always very, very active, very engaged group. And I'm planning to do a follow-up hands-on exercise in January here at Arizona State University, where I will do the same exercise for 1 hour, exactly the same exercise with a student of our Master in Health Informatics, in Biomedical Informatics program here at ASU. So we are talking about age groups of around 20 years old that will be interacting. So let's see what they think about this framework and if they find it useful or not. And we hope to report this in a publication. But I wanted to share with you what are the things that we learned from the EMEA workshop. Though we're still analyzing the data, I can tell you these are the main themes that emerge. First, this framework, Future AI, is clearly, they didn't create it thinking about consumer healthcare apps. They were more for clinical applications. And as we saw before, when we talk about mental health apps, additional considerations may be needed. They also look at, they consider variables like age, ethnicity, sex, etc. But the group thought also for mental health, we need to think about culture, language, and other variables that are very relevant. So the algorithms can be tested in terms of nuances. They also thought that some of these themes were very abstract, very difficult to measure or to test, despite this framework really tries to do that. So they think that more work needs to be done there. Continue testing this framework so they can be well defined. Also, and this is well explained by the authors of the framework. They also think that you cannot consider all the themes, give the same weight to all the themes. In some applications, you may have to change the weight or the import or balance the requirements. For instance, you may want to lower the requirements in terms of explainability because you want to create something that maybe is more AI sophisticated, more efficient, and therefore you want to compromise that a bit. But still, you should try to do your best effort to provide some explainability. So those are the things that also came through this hands-on workshop. So we are almost getting ready to get into the 45 minutes. So I'm going to just conclude. Hopefully, by now you are convinced that ethical AI is needed, especially when we are working with vulnerable populations. And when you don't think about this, negative consequences may happen, like we saw with the Replica app. There's a lot of push from consumers in terms of the need for trustworthy AI, especially those who are sharing sensitive data. That these consumers may be asking, is this app transparent about how AI is being used? Are there crisis resources clearly provided, indicated? Is my data shared or sold with others? Are these recommendations supported by any evidence? Is it clear that there's no therapist there, that I'm actually talking with an AI agent? This is some of the questions that consumers may be asking, and we need to demand that these applications are clear about it. I currently have a grant under review where I am proposing actually to involve consumers all around United States to be able to come out with simple statements that reflect what they want to know and also propose those to industry to see if they can adopt some of those to bring more trustworthy AI. Us as developers and researchers, we do need actionable and measurable frameworks if we want to create applications that are ethically grounded. And I just want to mention here, besides the frameworks that I talk about, there's an upcoming AMIA AI task force. And if you're interested to join because you have expertise on AI or you are very passionate about it and you want to provide your perspective, the application is still open. It closes on December 22, so you can submit your interest form. And if you get selected, you can participate, and it will be for 3 years. And the current president of AMIA will be leading that task force. So hopefully some outcome will come out from AMIA also in terms of guidelines and recommendations. And, if these frameworks are adopted, if people find it useful, if we can start collect evidence, hopefully it will help us to guide future regulations or policies at state and federal level. And with that, I will conclude. I'm happy to answer any question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grando, for this very insightful lecture. It's offering a very unique and important dimension of AI that we're so fortunate to have you today. It's for questions and answers. There is one in the chat. Stephen Sway, UCLA, he's asking, one interesting example in the recommendations for robustness is data augmentation and data synthesis. What strategies would you suggest in determining what components to consider when we generate synthetic data for a particular use case, I guess, for your consumers? Yes. Good question.
That's a very good question. And I would say it all depends on your application. So these are just suggestions from the framework, and you should be open to adapt them to the needs of your framework. So let's say the replica, right? What would be the mental health states that you want to model, right? From someone who's doing really well, for someone who's really struggling, variations in age, all the potential combinations that you can think about. Someone living in a very rural area, someone speaking different languages, have different proficiency of English, someone having different education levels, different literacy. So all the combinations that maybe are not present in your data and the data that you're using to testing your technology, but you should think about so you can do the assessment as systematic as possible. So it will give you all these combinations. But I don't have the answer. Just use the method that aligns the most and help you to explore the best your space, the population space that you have.
That's so interesting. Welcome, Dr. Peng. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Grace. So I have the next question. Could you please give more details about the proposal you mentioned? I'm not sure you can, but
I don't want anyone to steal my idea. Is this a person, a reliable person there that, I'm joking. Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about it. It's just anyone, anything that you can do in this direction to move it forward is welcome in the field. And if you have the expertise, please do pursue research on this area. But as part of that grant proposal, we want to do first review what help researchers may have in order to build these applications in an ethical way. That's why the work that you're doing, that is my thinking. I'm already thinking about this grant proposal, so I'm already doing the review of the frameworks. It will also include policies and laws in federal and state level to see what they actually are supporting or enforcing. And then we're going to see what consumers want. And then we're going to look at the intersection. Are the laws reflecting what consumers would like to see? What are the gaps in the law? And then how can we inform policymakers and lawyers about what is not there in the law? And that may be an issue because consumers want it. And then we will come out with a specific statements, simple statements that consumers will propose and validate. And my grant will be focused on chatbots, AI-based mental health apps. That's why I'm already thinking about it. And we will see if we can come out with simple statement and propose it to industry. So I'm also will have an advisory board of industry members who will tell us this is feasible. No one would add those. What would it mean, for instance, for Apple, for Google to recommend or enforce that on anyone who creates those apps, that they have to provide those statements. So that's part of the grant.
Thank you for sharing with us some insights. I know we're not supposed to talk about anything related to grants. These are confidential informations, but we appreciate the principles
Yes.
and the idea you share with us. I got one question from Ethan to you. What are some other considerations in making AI models robust with respect to working with varying inputs? I assume it's consumer inputs. For example, medical data often are messy.
Yeah.
They come in so many different forms.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's um, if you, first of all, you're going to test it with some ideal data first, right? We all tested our applications with the ideal data that is clean and nice and provides everything you want. But then you want to start to move towards messy data. And for that, that's the level second. And you saw the second level of recommendation was to try with real data. And then you want to make it even more challenges by using that argumentation techniques and see what are the worst possible scenario, those rare cases that you may not find in real life, at least in your data set, but may occur. And also, I would say involve domain experts because us as informaticians, we may not know what are the best testing scenarios. So bring domain experts who will help guide you towards the best testing cases. So I would say it was not proposed there, but I think you want to be able to assess, bring some domain experts in the loop so they can help you to test those scenarios to be sure that you actually cover all the cases.
Thank you, Dr. Grando, and thank you so much to our audience with very fascinating questions. And as usual, this amazing lecture will be posted on the NIH Bridge to AI YouTube channel and other social medias, as well as the Vimeo channel recordings. We welcome all of you to watch the lecture at your own time and at your own convenience, but you can still post questions to Dr. Grando, and we will make sure she receives your questions and get back to you. Jack?
Thank you, Dr. Bang. That was an awesome presentation, Dr. Grando. I really appreciate your time. And we also want to encourage our guests to stay tuned because we do also have a new module of lectures that we're going to be introducing in the coming weeks and months. So please stay tuned. Thank you so much for showing up and participating.
Thanks again, Dr. Grando.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks all the audience today. I know you all have multiple Christmas holiday functions to go to. We were counting our invitations. I think Jack and I have 4 dinners to eat today, if we can manage that. With that, happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year 2026 for another next series of Bridge to AI education modules. Bye-bye.
Bye.